Bring in Fox News senior judicial analyst Judge Andrew Napolitano. Judge, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, good morning, my dear friend.
So we're waiting to see what this new executive order looks like. But what did you make of the president's remarks last night as it relates to immigration?
They were far softer and more generous in tone than those which he had made in the campaign. And remember, the uniqueness of what he said on the campaign was the judges in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals that upheld the injunction on the original travel ban cited as reasons for upholding it the more incendiary things that he said in the campaign. Something I've never seen before. The words of candidate Trump being used against President Trump. But it's interesting, this morning, I think the speech was better received than the White House even expected it to be. And that may be the reason for yet another series of revisions in what he was, when he went to bed last night, planning to sign today.
Oh, wow. So you do think that that had something to do with it, the fact that his commentary was so well received. What do you expect that revised travel ban to look like?
Well, it's going to be prospective only. I mean, they have learned some lessons. There are 5 opinions that were written against this. One is the joint opinion by the 3 judges in the Ninth Circuit. And the others are various trial courts that wrote opinions against it. So the Justice Department took all of those opinions and made a checklist of everything that the court found objectionable and then attempted to identify those issues and address them in the new order. And one of the more fundamental constitutional problems with the original order is it was retroactive. Now, once the government gives you a visa, it can't take the visa away from you other than by your own fault, other than something that you do, meaning it can't change the rules for giving you a visa for you after you've received the visa, which is what this executive order purported to do. I still think the most troublesome part of it has to do with the choice of the 7 countries, which to you and me and our friends on your panel and almost everybody watching us makes absolute sense. The Obama State Department identified these 7 countries. The Trump State Department identified these 7 countries. Lay people who don't study this every day could tell us why those 7 countries are dangerous. Yet, last week, in another leak, somebody in the Intelligence Committee leaked an intelligence report saying, we did a study, and there's no more danger in those 7 countries than anywhere else. That's the type of thing that the courts will use to jettison the order yet again. So all of these things will be rewritten in an effort to address them. Prospective only, softer in tone, ultimately more serious vetting for everybody that wants to come in the United States.
Judge, this is Mercedes. One quick question. President Trump mentioned the merit-based immigration system, some new language I had not heard before. What was your impression about his remarks talking about this merit-based immigration system, something that you see in Canada, something that you see in Australia?
That would require legislation, and he knows that, and he made a reference to it, and it was fairly well received. There's merit-based and there's merit-based. If you're talking about we're only going to admit super brainiac, high-tech people who can work in Silicon Valley, I don't think that flies. But if you're talking we're going to admit people who not only are no threat to the United States, but really show an appreciation for our values, whether they're concierges at a hotel or whether they're people with 2 PhDs that are going to work in Silicon Valley and everything in between. So one should not think that by merit the president meant just super smart. He meant people who are happy to be here, who will fit in well here and will fill a need that we have here.
And who can support themselves and not be dependent on the government. Judge, yesterday in a private White House meeting, President Trump, according to reports, including that on the Fox News channel, talked about an immigration overhaul that could potentially grant legal status to millions of undocumented immigrants who are here in the United States, what conservatives would call amnesty. No mention of it in his speech last night, but what do you make of that?
Well, if he did that, it would be like Nixon going to China. Sometimes those things surprisingly work when someone does the exact opposite of what the world expects of them. But in this particular case, this president, more than any, I think in your memory and mine, Dagan, prides himself on doing as president exactly what he said he would do as a candidate. This would seriously alienate a substantial part of his base. Some of us might like it. Reagan did this in 1986. And for many years, it worked very well. Some may argue it's how a lot of bad people got in the country. Others may argue it was the right and compassionate thing to do. With the stroke of a pen, President Reagan caused about 6.5 million illegals to become lawful residents. Man, if Donald Trump does that, this would be more than Nixon going to China. It would be so out of character.
Let me ask you, Judge, the president also used last night's address to an opportunity to honor several special guests, including the widow of the man he is attempting to replace on the Supreme Court. Here's President Trump recognizing Maureen McCarthy Scalia.
Finally, I have kept my promise to appoint a justice to the United States Supreme Court. I am greatly honored to have Maureen Scalia with us in the gallery tonight. Her late great husband, Antonin Scalia, will forever be a symbol of American justice. To fill his seat, we have chosen Judge Neil Gorsuch, a man of incredible skill and deep devotion to the law. He was confirmed unanimously by the Court of Appeals, and I am asking the Senate to swiftly approve his nomination.
Was there an underlying message to the president honoring Justice Scalia last night, or was just he making an elegant gesture?
You know, I've been privileged to spend a fair amount of time with the president when he was president-elect, talking about Justice Scalia and the mechanism, not the person, but the mechanism for finding the right person to try and replace him. I think he genuinely experiences an affection for and appreciation of Justice Scalia. And I'm very happy to see my face up there with my dear friend Maureen McCarthy Scalia, mother of 10 children, widow of arguably the most influential justice in the post-World War II era. I was touched when he said that, perhaps because I know her so well. Is Judge Gorsuch a worthy successor for Justice Scalia? Absolutely. Of the people who have been scrutinized, and about 22 were scrutinized, 6 were scrutinized very, very seriously. Judge Gorsuch is the most like Justice Scalia in the way he thinks, the way he views the Constitution, the way he views the role of judges, and just as importantly, in the way he writes and the way he articulates. You can actually understand what he says.